Hi all, I have a fantastic game to show you today, so I'm a bit late with it. Garry Kasparov was playing against Magnus Carlsen. This is in the Champion Showdown, organised by the amazing St. Louis Chess Club, which is doing so much for chess. So Garry Kasparov, in this Fischer random start position, played d4, and we've got to look at the impact of these moves actually. They're kind of novel. It opens up the bishop. For example, look at the in effect clause. When you do a pawn move in chess, look at the effects on the entire position is a good tip I give students in general. And here I think that tip is actually very, very useful here, even in the start move. So this opens up a bishop as well. And also the king is exposed on this diagonal. So we've got the kings potentially exposed on these respective diagonals. We have now e3, knight f6, knight f3. And it's got a kind of classical feel to this game to start off with. a6, knight c3. D takes c4, bishop takes c4. If this was a classical game with a c8 bishop, that would be an issue, a c8 bishop, but at the moment it's an e8 bishop. It's not much of a problem. The bishops are actually coordinating quite well here for black. They've got their diagonals, and the white bishops are okay as well. We have c5. Unfortunately, this reduces some of the fun of the game, c5. Garry Kasparov took on c5, and we have an exchange of queens. Boo! I hear you say, boo! The exchange of queens. Bishop d3, king e7, and now the fancy castling. And if you're playing online Fischer random, I think you click on the rook, you click the king and the rook, or something like that. I haven't played it for a while. Anyway, we have castling queenside, knight c6, knight g5. So this is a rerouting of the knight to e4 to hit the bishop. It seems rook d8, so knight ge4, a major threat here, hitting the bishop. Okay, knight takes, bishop b6, bishop c3. The position now is like a normal chess position. White has a little bit of pressure, it seems. We have f6, and now a slightly controversial double-edged move g4. It does weaken potentially this diagonal, and in fact Magnus's next move is quite clever. Well, he's going to tap into this diagonal pretty shortly. He first plays bishop a5 to dampen the effect of this pressure. We see bishop takes, knight takes. This does enable black actually to try and punish this diagonal. So we see bishop c2, bishop c6. There's an immediate threat here potentially of f5 now, because that knight is pinned in a relative sense to the rook. So the rook moves out of the way, and we have knight c4. It seems as though black has equalized here, fully equalized. Rook takes, g5. We see f5, knight c3, knight e5, and there's a horrible idea here of poking into f3 sometimes. This looks like to hit h2. It looks a little bit uncomfortable. We see f4, knight f3, rook g2 going into potential discovery of the bishop, g6, and then we have rook f2. Perhaps slightly better in this position to consider is rook g3. If knight takes, then rook h3 would hit the knight and the pawn, and this position would be about equal. So we have rook f2 though, and I think black is actually in the driving seat after e5. This looks pretty unpleasant. So the black rook, by contrast to the white rook, is very nicely placed and controls that file for a moment. d2 is a common square at the moment. We have now e4. Okay, if f takes had been played, then actually black does best, it seems, to take on g5 here, and black would have a big advantage. So anyway, e4 was played though, so there's a lot of central pawn tension in this position. But after f takes, knight takes, it seems here black is still significantly better here after knight d4. We see knight g3. The threat here, knight takes and bishop takes, is nasty. So knight g3, getting the knight out of the way. After knight takes, king takes, there's a nasty pin though, rook f8. It seems as though white has been tangled up in pins for much of this game. We see knight e2, king e6, king d2, and now the move bishop b5. This is like a very good idea to dismantle the white pawn chain, which is also vulnerable potentially to king f5. We see rook f3, and here black could have just taken on e2 and then taken on f4 and then maybe king f5. It looks like a very pleasant position for Magnus Carlsen if he had just taken here on e2 to dismantle this pawn chain. But he plays an unbelievably strange rook move. If I give you 5,000 points, can you guess, and 10 seconds to pause the video here, what do you think Magnus Carlsen played here? Black to play. Okay. He didn't play the obvious bishop takes e2. He played rook f7. And actually now Kasparov plays rook e3. So he's actually pinning this pawn to the king. And all of a sudden he can throw in an intermediate check if bishop takes e2. There'll be an intermediate check on e5. So this happens, and white is out of the woods here. Out of any dangerous woods here. This looks like now it's calm. It's an equalish endgame. Let's see what happened though. So g5 is taken though. And now rook b5, rook takes h7. Okay, white needs to play carefully, but the transitions are all pretty drawish here. Dissolving that pawn means now, you know, there's nothing much to worry. If rook takes, then rook b5, and it's going to be, you know, drawing. So here, though, it's looking very, very drawish, and soon, let's see, do they shake hands? Yes, it is extremely drawish here. So king c4, b5, I believe is the final moves, and agreeing a draw. Yeah, so that's the encounter with Fischer Random Chess. I hope you enjoyed it. Yeah, a bit of a change. We don't usually feature Fischer Random games. Yeah, I did have some technical issues. Yes, it was a pain to set this up, and that's partly why it was delayed. But anyway, I hope you appreciate all the effort I've made to present you this game. Yes. I just don't like variance in general. I just want to set that out for the record. And also I would like to say, I think Fischer Random was set out not to minimize the number of draws, but to stop pre-arranged draws. I think Fischer was a bit paranoid, but maybe there was some evidence in his paranoia that the Russians were just, you know, kind of agreeing quick draws with each other with prepared sequences. So they're fresh to prepare against Fischer. Fischer eventually benefited, though, and became a formidable force from all this free training. So, you know, maybe there was a slight little downside of their strategy to knock Fischer out of some of the candidates. But, you know, Fischer Random Chess was born as a result of this kind of hate and resentment Fischer had. And, you know, for such formats where such things were going on. But today, yeah, it is used, you know, for other applications. Obviously not that, for creativity, for maybe minimizing the draw rate. But the original application, I believe, is a little bit based on that. Let me know if you think I'm being too controversial with that comment. I'd love to hear your comments. Yep, just let me know. By the way, there's a new course, Kingscrusher TV/Opening Tango, if you want to check that out. That's got a lot of elements of weakness provocation to check out. That's Nimzovich with E5, very aggressive systems that Tony Moles had fantastic success with, and also the Mexican defense. So the whole, you know, network of tango provocative openings with the black pieces. There's the bit.ly/Leela Chess playlist, or bit.ly/Stockfish Chess to check out. Kingscrusher TV/Discord, or bit.ly/Chessworld if you want to invite me for a game at 5 days a move. Just register there and I'll be able to invite you for a game soon after. Okay, comments, questions, like, share, subscribes with the notification bell. Really appreciated. Thanks very much.